Hello and welcome to today's webinar, April 2015 SAT School Day Kickoff. My name is Lori and I'll be in the background answering any WebEx technical questions. If you experience technical difficulties within the WebEx session, you may also contact 1-866-229-3239. Please note that as an attendee, you are part of a larger audience. However, to maintain privacy, the number and names of attendees will not be displayed. All attendees will be in a listen-only mode throughout the presentation, and as a reminder, today's call is being recorded. We will be holding a Q&A session at the conclusion of today's presentation. To submit a question, click on the Q&A panel located on the lower right side of your screen. Type your question into the text field and hit send. Please keep the send to default as all panelists. With that, we invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy today's presentation. I would now like to introduce your presenter for today, Adrienne Kupper, part of the SAT team. Adrienne, you now have the floor.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our kickoff webinar. As Lori said, we're going to do our kickoff webinar for the April 2015 school day testing administration. We're excited to have you with us. We are, just to give you a little bit of an overview of the agenda, the goal today is we're going to provide you with basically an overview of the steps in the school day process, the implementation process, because we want to make sure that all of the schools and especially all of the students are having a really good experience and to have a really successful administration. So what we're going to do today is just kind of go through and do an overview of some of the big picture processes that you're going to need to know about. We're going to talk about the roles and responsibilities of the different test center staff that you need to have assigned at each school. And we're going to talk about the test center setup process. Now, some of you are probably in the midst of that process already, but we're going to have a conversation just to make sure everybody's clear about what you need to do to make sure your school is set up to be a test center. We'll talk about the SAT online course that gives students the opportunity to practice in advance of the exam. We'll talk about the SSD information so that students that have disabilities will be able to get the appropriate accommodations that they need. We'll also go through the process of registration for students. That's one that often has a lot of questions attached to it. So we'll make sure that all of you guys understand how students register for the session, register for the test. And then we'll also talk about test center staff training. So in addition to the folks on the phone who will be involved in the administration, there'll be other people at the school that will be involved in the administration. And so we want to make sure you're clear on how everybody gets trained. We'll talk about how materials are delivered, test materials are delivered to your school. And we'll also kind of do an overview of the student score reports and the school score reports and the enhanced data reports that you get as part of this, as being part of this initiative, so that everybody understands that. And as Lori mentioned, we're going to do a question and answer session at the end. As she said, just in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see that there's the Q&A box. If you have any questions at all throughout the course of the presentation, feel free to enter your question in there. You don't have to wait till any particular time. Just enter your question in when you have it. And then at the end, we're going to go through all the questions and make sure that we get the questions answered. What we'll also do is create a question and answer document that comes out of these questions that will be shared through SAT staff out to schools so that you have these answers in a hard copy form as well. And then the last thing that we're going to look at is the customer service and implementation support contact information. So if you have a problem, if your students have a problem, if anybody has a question or an issue, we'll make sure you know who you can talk to and how to contact them. So that's it. That's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to start, like I said, first thing, we're going to talk about the roles and responsibilities of the different test center staff. It's really important to make sure that you have people assigned to each of these roles. And that everybody understands their role and is really taking their role seriously. Each of these roles is integral to making sure that the school day administration is successful. So we're going to talk through each of the roles right now so that you can understand them. And then what will be important for you is at your school to think about who are the right people to fill these different roles and who can really handle the responsibilities that go with each one of them. So the first role is the test center supervisor, and this is the person who basically kind of oversees almost everything to do with the administration on an administration day. And this person is responsible for the setup of everything in advance and the management of the test administration day. So that includes receiving and storing test materials and training the other staff at the test center, so the other teachers or other folks at the school that will be supporting the administration. And so the test center supervisor, there's a lot of communication with that person before the administration, and then there'll also be some communication post-administration. The next role is the registration coordinator, and obviously, as you can guess, registration is a really important part of this. We need to make sure that students are registered so that they are then able to take the test on test day. So the registration coordinator is the person who receives and distributes the student vouchers, and that's how students register. And this person also manages and monitors student registration via the counselor registration report. We'll talk more about that later, but this is the person who makes sure that your students actually are registering and keeps an eye on that kind of registration volume. The third role here is the SSD coordinator. So this person manages the application process for students who are requiring accommodations and who are working with the College Board Services for Students with Disabilities office. You may actually already have somebody at your school that fills this role, but we'll talk about that later. But this is, again, another important role. And then our fourth role is the person who is the SAT online course coordinator. So this person is responsible for receiving and distributing the SAT online course access codes. So this person receives it and distributes it to students so that in advance of the test, the students have the opportunity to use the online course and practice and prepare themselves. Now, it's important to note that in some cases you can have one person fill multiple roles. So it's possible to have the test center supervisor also be, let's say, the SAT online course coordinator, or the registration coordinator could also be the same person, or the same person could do the registration coordinator role as well as the SAT online course coordinator role. That is possible. Something for you to think about with that, you just want to think about the number of students that will be testing at your school, and think about just kind of how many people and how many people that those coordinators will need to kind of monitor and keep track of. And then you can kind of decide if you want someone to fill multiple roles, or if you really want one person identified for each role. It is important to note, though, that the person who's the SSD coordinator, that person, the test center supervisor, cannot also be the SSD coordinator. So the test center supervisor and the SSD coordinator have to be two different people. So we're going to go to the next slide and talk about test center setup. This has actually basically been done for, I think, just about everybody on the line. I just do want to mention it, though, in case anybody has a question about this, or if there is still anybody that has their test center intake form kind of in process. So this is something that's completed by the district, or if you're a state customer, the state. And basically this went out as a pre-populated form within 10 days of quote acceptance. And each school that's on there needs a high school AI code. Basically, this is how we know which schools are testing and which schools we need to communicate with, send materials to, all that kind of stuff. And so the TCAF was actually due back in November. That's why I'm saying I think the large majority of you, this isn't an issue. But if you have been in communication with us with questions or completing your TCIF, if there was something missing or whatnot, it is really, really important that if you're the district staff or the state staff, we get these issues ironed out very, very quickly. But like I said, for most people, this is taken care of already. The other step to make sure that your test center is set up is actually an incredibly important step, so I want to make sure that everybody understands this. And this is to complete the center master form, or as you'll see it referred to as the CMF form in here as well. And it falls on the responsibility of each school that's serving as a test center. So what happens is this test center, the center master form, the CMF, is emailed to the person who is designated as the test center supervisor at each school. So that person who's basically kind of that lead person at each school. That form then basically what it does is it confirms the size of the test center, the number of people that you're expecting to have test there, and it has all of the contact information. It confirms that contact information. It's also really important because this form serves as basically the agreement between a school, a test center, and the College Board that you're going to administer the test, that you're going to follow the security protocols, that you're going to be responsible for receiving our materials. So this is a really key form, and if we don't get this form returned to us, or if you don't return this form, and when you get the form, there'll be information on where to return it to. If that form isn't returned, we can't actually send you materials to test your students. So this is a very, very important form. This form is due back within 7 days of receipt. And so these actually went out on or about January 5th to folks. So pretty much test centers and test center supervisors should have received these. If there was an issue with a TCIF form, you may not have received it yet, but we're in touch with people so that people understand and are getting the forms that they need. But you want to make sure, check your email if you're the test center supervisor at your school, that you have received this form. It's very important to fill the form out and, like I said, to get it back to us, because without this form we can't send you materials. It's important to also know that if your school is a national test center, if you already give the SAT on Saturdays, you still need to complete a CMF form because the CMF forms for the school day administration are different. So just because if you are a Saturday test center, if you completed a CMF form for Saturday, you will need to complete another one for the school day. So that's for the school day administration. So that's important to know. And as I mentioned, these are due back within 7 days of receipt. It's very important we have these back before we start mailing registration materials out. And so those materials start to go out on January 26th. So it's really important you send those forms back in. Great, I think we're going to move on to the next one. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, the next slide here. You'll see that there's some directions. This is what the directions look like for the Center Master form. When you get the form in an email, you're going to get you'll get an email stating that that your CMF is coming to you. And then you'll get attachments, and you'll see these are the directions. This gives you the breakdown of what you need to do, and there's also contact information on who to contact if you're having a problem or sending. And so this gives you everything you need to know, hopefully, on what you need to do to fill out that CMF. And then this next slide, you'll see is actually what the CMF looks like. So this is another one of the attachments you're going to see. Now it's important to know on this form that every field on here is mandatory. You must fill out every field on this form in order for the form to be completed. So if you don't fill out every field on the form, you can send it in, but then we're going to have to go back and forth trying to get that information. So it's much better if at the beginning of the process when you're filling out the form, just know you have to fill out every field on here, and that'll make the CMF process go a lot more smoothly for everybody. Couple important notes here. If there are delays in either submitting the TCIF or the CMF, basically what will happen is it can cause operational disruptions, and it's going to impact ultimately the test day experience. So students may have a shorter time to register, for example, if we don't get the forms back in a timely manner. Or we may not have all the information we need to make sure that students are getting all of the right information. So it's really important that we don't have delays in either step, and also that you're carefully filling out each of these forms. And if you have questions, that you reach out to us, because we can walk through and we can walk you through any questions and make sure you can get these forms filled out right the first time. Just to let you know, these deadlines, they may seem a little bit far out. We're talking about your test day in April, but we're talking about forms being due here in January. It's actually really important, though. We've built in time in the process to have a lot of quality control built in to make sure that we're verifying information, that you're going to get the right materials, and that's why the deadlines are as far out as they are. But it's important that they are. Like I said, we need to do the quality control. We want to make sure that your students are having the best experience, so it is important that you're following those deadlines. And like I said, if we're not meeting deadlines, if you don't meet a deadline, it could delay either the registration process, the online course access, or the delivery of materials, and ultimately that impacts the students. And we know that you guys want a good experience for the students. We certainly want a good experience. So if you're having a problem with any of the forms, do reach out to us. Like I said, at the end of the presentation, you'll have all the contact information, and we'll make sure that you can get these forms filled out well, and that everything can move smoothly. So the next topic we're going to talk about is the SAT, the official SAT online course. So this is the course basically that students get access to. All the students who are testing will be able to have access to this course so that they can practice and come into the administration in April prepared and feeling good and ready to take the test. So this basically the responsibility for distributing the access codes and making sure that students have access to the course falls onto the SAT online course coordinator at each school. And so that's the person that was identified, that your school identified, and basically that person receives instructions via email on how to provide students with access to the course. So access to the online course is provided to folks within 40 days of the quote acceptance. And schools then, the online course coordinators at each school, will provide the access, students with the access to the course itself by providing them with access codes. When the students have the access codes, they can go online, they can create their personal accounts for the course using the access code and the instructions that you're going to be provided, and they can start using the course and they can start practicing and preparing. So this is a great opportunity for students to prepare and feel and really get excited and feel prepared to take the test and go into the test feeling good. So the next topic, the next step in kind of making sure that you're all ready to go for the April administration of the school day of the school day test is to make sure that students are set up with Students for Disabilities are set up with our SSD office to make sure they have the appropriate accommodations that they need. So, as I mentioned, on the forms that are provided to you on the TCAF and then ultimately on the CMF, your school is going to be providing contact information for an SSD coordinator and confirming that contact information. I did mention that if you have students that are participating in the Saturday National Administrations, your school may already have an SSD coordinator, and if that's the case, they don't need to do anything to get set up. They're already set up in the College Board's SSD system. But if your school doesn't have an SSD coordinator, you will need to make sure that you identify that person and get that person set up in the system. And you will get information, you'll get directions in an email on how to go through and actually get set up in the system, so that you can support the students who need accommodations with the test. And the College Board will provide districts with a list of the SSD coordinators at each school, so that you know who has access and who has completed the setup process. So the districts and the state level folks will know who are the SSD coordinators, but also the school level people. The SSD coordinators are actually based at each school. And when students are, it's important. The SSD coordinator basically helps to guide the student through the process of getting of receiving accommodations for any disabilities that they may have. Now, if a student has already applied for and received accommodations through the SSD office here at the College Board, if they've taken the test as part of a Saturday admin or whatnot, if they already have and were approved for accommodations, they don't need to reapply for school day. Those accommodations that they already have are basically already valid and still approved for the school day administration. But if you have students who you feel require SSD accommodations and haven't already applied for them, they need to work with the SSD coordinator at the school to submit a request for those accommodations. And it's important, you can submit requests for accommodations at any time. You can submit them now, but they have to be, they really need to be submitted by February 25th in order to make sure that students can go through the approval process, which can take up to 7 weeks. So for the school day admin, please, if a student needs accommodations, please make sure you're submitting any applications for accommodations by February 25th, so that students can go through the review process. Okay, the next topic is student registration. And student registration, as I mentioned, is a super important part of this. Students need to be registered through the system to be able to take and be part of the school day administration. And so, as we mentioned, the people who are responsible for this, the person at each school responsible for this, is the registration coordinator. And again, that was somebody who was identified on the TCAF and confirmed on the CMF. And that's a person at each, there's a registration coordinator for each school. And basically, the registration coordinator at each school is going to be sent registration materials and instructions. Okay, so that person's going to receive all of the information, all of the materials that is necessary for students to have to register. So what will happen is those materials will get mailed out on January 26th to the attention of the registration coordinator, and then the registration coordinator takes those materials, distributes the SAT school day vouchers and the instructions to any student who's participating in the school day administration, and you want to make sure that they are submitting these materials are distributed to students during the registration window, certainly before the registration window closes. They can't register if the registration window has closed, so you have to make sure that students are getting these materials in a timely fashion so they have plenty of time to register. And then counselors can track the student registrations through what is called the counselor registration report, and you'll receive information with all of this and part of the instructions on how to access this report. So you'll be able to see how many students have registered and are part of your school day administration, so you can keep an eye on it. You can know if you have students that still need to register, if you need to really help push and remind students to register. You'll be able to track that. As I mentioned, just important dates to know. Like I said, the registration materials will be shipped January 26th. They're going to come to your school via UPS. Delivery may vary slightly depending on geographical location, depending on where you are located, but please keep an eye out during that week for your registration materials. The registration window, the dates for the registration window, so registration opens February 4th and closes April 1st. So you need to make sure that students have the registration materials so they can register between February 4th and April 1st. If needed, if something happens and you don't have enough voucher codes when you receive the materials, or something happens, students lose it or whatnot, you can contact customer service and we can help you with that process too. So to make sure that you can get additional codes. It's important to know, and like I said, so basically students are going to get vouchers, and the vouchers will include instructions for them on how they go about registering for the test. And it also includes a code that they use, a specific code just for them, so that they can access the system and not have to see anything about any sort of financial transaction. This is how they don't have to worry about paying for anything. It's all part of the code that they get. Students will need to create a College Board account in order to be able to register online. Now, it's important to know if a student already has a College Board account, if they've already taken the SAT on a Saturday admin, or for whatever reason, if they already have a College Board account, they can use that College Board account, and they need to use that College Board account, and they can use their voucher to go through and complete a registration. But if they don't have a College Board account, they do need to create one. So every student will need to have an online College Board account to be able to register. And once a student has one, whether they already have it or whether they've created it, they will then be able to register online. And like I said, on their voucher, there'll be all the directions they need on how to go about registering for the SAT school day administration. Now, two things to tell you about student registration. And you know your students best, you know how they work best, so it's important for you to think about what's going to be the best approach for registration for your students. There's two different ways you can go about approaching online registration. You can do it in a self-guided way. So basically, you can give your students their vouchers on their own and send them off on their own to register. So they go and they register at home or they register after school. This may be a good choice for your students, only you know your students. But there's a self-guided approach, or you can do it as an organized event. So you could do it, let's say, during an English class, that everybody who has English class on a certain date is going to register as part of that class, and they could, everybody can have access to a computer, and everybody at the same time registers for, within the class, registers for the SAT. If you have concerns that your students may not have access to the internet at home, or if you have concerns that your students may not be responsible about registering, it may be wise for you to think about setting aside class time or some other period of time for them to do it as a group in the school building. Something for you to think about. And it's important to know that registration online will take approximately 45 minutes to complete. So keep that in mind if you are asking, if you are deciding you want to have all students do it in school. You're just going to need to make sure they have about a 45-minute block of time to complete that. But like I said, you know your students best. You probably know the approach that's going to be best for them. And then this particular slide, you'll see this is what a voucher looks like. And so the students fill in what their 6-digit high school code is, so that the schools can can know who is registering and can also receive the score information. And then where you see it says student voucher code, it's blank here on this particular one, but there will be an individual code in that box for each student. And this voucher has all of the directions they'll need and the address of where they need to go to register. So we've talked a lot about different staff roles, but the question is, if you're a test center supervisor or a registration coordinator or anything, how do you know what to do? So it's important that you have that you're trained to do your role. The test center supervisor is really the person who's going to be the first one trained, essentially, and you're going to be the one who's going to help to train the other staff who are going to be involved in administering the test on test day. So the test center supervisor plays a major role to make sure that the administration goes smoothly and that everything goes well and that everybody has a good experience. So the test center supervisor receives training materials and does online training themselves, and then the test center supervisor will also need to set aside time to do basically turnkey training of the other test center staff involved. So that may be, it may be a a faculty meeting that you set aside time for, or some other time where you're able to set aside time and train the other people who will be supporting the school day administration in April. So training instructions and materials are mailed out to the test center supervisor by ETS on February 13th of 2015. So coming up in a couple of weeks, these instructions and materials will be mailed out to the test center supervisor. Additionally, test center supervisors are going to get access to an online training portal, and that will be emailed by Test Administrative Services, or TAS, at ETS on February 19th. So that it's important to keep an eye on that time period. You're going to get both a physical hard copy set of instructions and materials in the mail, as well as an online access to a training portal. The training portal itself launches February 19th, and you need to make sure, if you're a test center supervisor, that you've completed training by April 1st of 2015, and then subsequently, once you've completed training, that you're able to turn around and then train the other staff in your center. It is important to know that it's mandatory that all test center supervisors complete the training, and the online module, it basically takes, it's divided into smaller modules. So you can sit down and complete it all at once if you have the time to do that, or you can come back to it and complete a mini module, come back to it another day, complete the next one. So it's up to you as to how you want to do it. If you're going to sit and complete it all in one sitting, it takes about an hour, maybe an hour and a half to complete. But like I said, you can start it, save your progress, and come back to it another time if you'd like to do that. And basically, College Board provides a report on the completion rates for test center supervisors on a weekly basis after training has launched, so that districts and state staff can know how the training of each test center supervisor is progressing. And like I mentioned, test center supervisors will get materials in the mail. So this is what you're going to get in the mail. You'll get the SAT School Day Testing Manual. And so this is kind of your go-to guide that you can easily flip through and find the information that you need. In this guide as well will be phone numbers, and it's basically your kind of one-stop shop for everything you need. And if if you need something that's not in there, like I said, there's phone numbers and contact information for who to reach out to if you need something and you can't find it there. So that's a really important document. So once everybody's trained and everybody's got their online course access and things are moving in preparation, the test day will be coming. And so you have to be able to get your test materials to be able to administer the test to your students on the administration day. And so let's talk about the test materials delivery here. As I mentioned when we were talking about the CMS, it's the test center supervisor's responsibility to receive the test materials and make sure that they are received and secured in advance of the test. And so it's important to know here, ETS is going to ship test materials out to the person who's the test center supervisor beginning on April 3rd with the target delivery date of April 10th for everyone to get those materials. As I mentioned, it's the test center supervisor who's responsible for securing those test materials once they've arrived at your school, And in your test center supervisor training, in the manual and in the online training, there's information on how to secure those materials. So it's the test center supervisor's job to do that. It's really, really important that you do keep an eye out for that. And I do want to make a mention of the dates there. We do have a few schools that are testing in April that are going to be on vacation during that week and are going to be closed April 10th. We have created a list of schools that will be closed so that we can adjust shipping accordingly. But if you are concerned, please reach out to your direct College Board contact or through your district to your College Board contact and make sure that we're just aware that you're closed. But we do know that we have some of our customers that the schools won't be open, and we're adjusting shipping accordingly. So most people will receive it April 10th. If your school is closed, we can make sure to adjust it so that you're getting materials in time, but that they're not arriving when your school is closed. If you have any issues at all with your material delivery, or there's any security concerns about your materials, it's very, very important that they are brought to the attention of Test Administrative Services, or TAS, at ETS immediately. And that contact information is going to be in your test center supervisor manual. That's really important. If you notice anything, if you're concerned, if a box doesn't look right, or if it doesn't seem you haven't gotten it in time, whatever has happened, you reach out immediately to Test Administrative Services. It's also important, as I mentioned, it's clear, I hope it's been clear throughout these slides, that the test center supervisor role really is very important. It's a lot of communication that goes back and forth between the test center supervisor and ETS and making sure that everything is okay. If there's a need for a change in who the test center supervisor is at your school, you have to communicate that to Test Administrative Services immediately too. So we can't have a name for if you have a test, if somebody's identified to be the test center supervisor and something happens and they become very ill and have to go on leave, you have to identify somebody else and let us know immediately, because that person plays a crucial role. And here you'll see this is right here in that last kind of bubble. The telephone number and the email address for Test Administrative Services in the event that you haven't received your shipment by the Friday before the test, assuming your school's open. If you haven't received it by that date, reach out to us. We can check on things and just make sure make sure you're going to get your materials and everything's okay. So we're nearing the end of our topics here, but once your students, once you have your materials, your students are then going to take the test, and after the test, everybody wants to know their scores. So it's important to know here that the students are going to get their score reports approximately 22 days after the school day test administration. So they'll be able to access their scores online in their College Board accounts. So the same account that they use to register for the test, they will also be able to go into that same place and be able to see their scores. Students can also access their scores via the customer service phone number. If for some reason they don't have access to their account, they can call the customer service phone number and access their scores. And then high schools also get score reports for the students in their high school. So this is just the score information. This is an enhanced scoring, but the actual scores themselves. And there are two different options available for high schools to receive students' SAT scores. Now, your high school, when they went through the process of essentially registering with ETS and getting a code to be able to get those scores and have the scores from students tracked to them, they already made a choice about how they're getting the scores. So it's important to know that your school is likely already set up with a score reporting method. But there are two different options. There's a CD-ROM score delivery option and an internet score delivery option. So if for some reason your school wants to add an additional reporting option or change a reporting option, you'll just see there that the contact information for code control, that phone number is there. And so you can contact them if you want to change or add an additional reporting option. If you do choose more than one reporting option, there's an additional charge at the school's expense. And then the other type of score reporting that school day customers receive We call it the school day enhanced data and reporting. So this is information that provides you with more than just the score, but with enhanced data about students and their performance on the exams. These reports are available between 6 and 8 weeks after the school day test administration, and these are aggregate and skill reports. And these are designed to inform your classroom instruction, so they'll provide you with a lot more information than just simply a score. And like I said, these are available between 6 to 8 weeks after the school day test administration. So you're going to get two different reports or files as part of this, as part of the enhanced data and reporting. You're going to get a student level data file, and this is going to give you student level as an enhanced student level data. So you'll be able to know student performance on each item, the student scores, and it'll give you information kind of to help you guide and think about student coursework and where they are, how they are performing. The best way to use it, you review it to look at student performance, and you can compare performance by subgroups of students if that's helpful for you. So this particular file is available and will come out to you 4 to 6 weeks after the administration. You're going to get a first run of this 4 to 6 weeks after the administration. It will not include, that first run will not include data for any student who needs to take a makeup test, who was absent and has to do the makeup test, or students who have held or canceled scores. So that report can then be rerun between 8 and 12 weeks after the administration, so that you can then capture the data for every student. So just important to know that your first report that you're going to receive, you may see that students are missing. That's likely because they either were absent or there was an issue with their scores and their scores are being held. So that second run is where you're going to see basically everybody. And then you'll receive a second report. You'll receive the school day enhanced aggregate reports, and these basically, this is aggregate performance data at a school, district, and state level. So this gives you kind of an insight into a percentage of items answered correctly by specific skill groups, mean scores by section, and student score distribution. It can be used to identify the skill categories within highest and lowest performance. You can look at differences in school performance or district performance or whatnot. And these take a little bit longer to get. So these are the ones that you'll get between 6 and 8 weeks after the administration. It's important to know that the data you're going to see on there, it will be data for students that tested using the standard form. So the students who took the test on the administration date using the standard form. You will not see data included in the aggregate report for students who had to use a different form. So, for example, if they used, if students were testing with accommodations, you're not going to see their data reflected in. You're not going to see their data reflected in the aggregate reports. You also will not see the data for makeup testers reflected in the aggregate reports. But it will be the data for really the large majority of students in your school who will have tested, because they're using the standard form on testing. As I mentioned, just the enhanced reports include data for students who tested using the standard form. This is just really important because sometimes there's a question about why am I not seeing data for everybody? You're not going to see in the aggregate reports, you won't see data for everybody, because if they used a different form, if they used the form of the test, if they were using a makeup form, or if they did test with accommodations, you can't really compare them. It was different forms of the test. So you're just going to see the data for students using the standard form. The second run of reports can capture scheduled scores, but not necessarily exceptions that are outside of our control, inclement weather or health-related issues. So it's important to know there may be some students that you might still not be able to catch in some of those reports. Enhanced reports, as we mentioned, will not capture makeup administration or SSD students, but you will see every student in your student level data file. That's called the SC27 form, that's student level data file. You will eventually see the data for every student. And with that, we have gotten through we've gotten through quite a bit of information, and so it's time to take some questions. Now, we're going to take some questions, and just to let you know, I hopefully will not be the only one speaking during the question period here. We have a couple other people from College Board that are also on the phone. We have Jessica, we have Megan, we have Daniel, and here in the room with me is Francie. So we're likely going to toss the questions around to different people, so you're not just hearing my voice again. But like I said, we're going to answer your questions right now. So just give us a second. We're just going to go and take a look at the questions that have come in through the chat box and make sure that we can answer all of your questions. As I said, to just know, I'm going to give you answers, and other people are going to give you answers now, but we'll also create a written Q&A document based on these questions. So, Francie, what questions do we have?
How do we know if the CMF was received by ETS or College Board? I scanned and emailed it in.
Okay, so you should receive an email from ETS that your CMF was received. If you didn't receive that email, double check, make sure, look in kind of junk folders and whatnot, make sure it didn't get rerouted to maybe a wrong folder if you haven't received that email. If you still didn't receive that email, you're going to want to reach out to the district staff, and we can communicate to make sure that your CMF was received. Also know that if we received your CMF but there was a problem, we will reach back out to you so that you know that we need additional information or if there's something that's missing. But you should, when you have sent in your CMF, you should have received a confirmation email. Okay, skip one.
Sorry. Students who were approved for SSD accommodations for AP exams do not need to reapply?
The students who have already been approved for accommodations, they are approved for accommodations. They don't have to go through the application process again. I think we skipped one.
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
This one?
Yeah, we have now received.
What if we have not received a form? It's now January 13th.
Okay, so if you've not received the form, there are a couple things that could be going on with that. Like I said, first thing you should do is check spam folders and junk mail folders and all that kind of stuff, because sometimes, especially if you're receiving emails into a school account, sometimes things get routed into, and spam blockers will route things into those folders. So double check those folders. If you still haven't, if it's not in there, you can reach out to us. It is possible if we don't have a completed or full, completed TCIF from a district or something, we may not know of schools. So if you don't have a form and you've checked to make sure it's not in a spam folder or whatnot, you can reach out to us. I'm going to ask Megan if maybe she can talk more about the process of reaching out to and checking in on this. Is Megan able to talk?
That the email will not be coming from College Board initially. It will come from Test Administrative Services, and the title of the email will read, Urgent, set up your SAT School Day Test Center today. So sometimes that can throw supervisors off, but that's what you'll want to look for, is an email coming from Test Administrative Services, and the subject title will say Urgent, set up your SAT School Day Test Center today, or something to that effect. If after searching you still are not able to locate the form, I do know that ETS did get all of those out to the supervisors already, unless, like Adrienne said, there was some information that we're missing. And I know that they will also go ahead and send a copy of the email that's needed to principals to try to get that in. If after they make that round, the form is still outstanding, customer service on College Board's end will make outreach to assist and try to get those in as soon as possible from everybody. So we'll definitely get those in and not leave anybody left standing, unless for whatever reason they're not going to be participating.
Thanks, Megan.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so students who are approved for SSD accommodations for AP exams do not need to reapply.
So, yeah, we answered that one already. They don't need to reapply.
Okay. If we have an SSD coordinator for AP testing, does this person already have access for SAT accommodation requests?
I'm going to ask Megan or Daniel to take that. Could either one of you?
I'm happy to take it. So since we primarily deal with the SAT, I would like to say that the SSD coordinator is a coordinator for all College Board exams, but I'm not 100% sure. So you would have to confirm with the SSD department who is on file for your school, but I believe it's usually one individual if there is an individual on file, and they have access regardless of the College Board exam. So it should be the same person, but again, you would want to reach out to SSD just to confirm.
Okay. So the next question is, if my SSD coordinator registered a student with accommodations in September, is that too early for the spring SAT? We had registered students all at one time from the fall school day SAT.
So the answer to that is it is not too early. It's great that they should be set up and ready to go. So if they were approved for accommodations in the fall, those accommodations are still approved, and they still have access to those accommodations for the spring exam.
Okay. So the next question is, if students register at their home school but are subsequently sent to alternative high school, which will be a test center, will said students need to re-register and vice versa? If they were at alternative and register, will they need to re-register when released?
Megan, could you?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one. So if a student is already registered at their home school but for whatever reason is sent to an alternative high school that is a test center, or if they have moved schools within the district, or if they have moved schools and are no longer in the district, that just needs to be communicated to us. The students do not have to re-register at the new site. Instead, either the student would want to give us a call at the main customer service number, or the counselor or supervisor can call us on the educator helpline to let us know that the student has moved, and we can update their registration. If they've moved out of the district and are not going to be participating, then of course we can cancel the registration as well. If none of those options are feasible due to time constraints or what have you, then the supervisor or one of the testing staff can also reach out to their district by way of email, and their district can get that information back to us, and we'll take care of it on this end as well.
Okay. If students have a College Board account but they don't remember their password, what do we do?
Megan, could you take this one?
Sure. So if a student is going online at collegeboard.org and they know they have an account but they don't remember what their password is, there is a forgot password link. We would highly encourage you to try those options available online first, whether it's forgot my username, forgot my password, and try to access it that way. Otherwise, they can always call into the main customer service line.
This will be my third year to be a test center supervisor. Do I still need to complete the online module training?
Yes, we would suggest you complete the online module training just to make sure that you're up to date on everything. So we would still recommend that you complete it.
Okay, I did not know until today that one person cannot be both SSD coordinator and test center supervisor. I already submitted the CMF indicating that I was playing both roles. What do I do now?
Megan, do you want to take that?
Well, the CMF will only go out to the test center supervisor, and on the CMF it only asks for the test center supervisor information and then who will be assisting as an alternate supervisor if for whatever reason the supervisor is out that day. There's nowhere on the CMF for it to indicate an SSD coordinator. So I don't know if maybe they're thinking that they listed themselves as the test center supervisor and the alternate supervisor, in which case, no, that would not be possible, and ETS should reach out to you to let you know that on the form. Otherwise, if you are the SSD coordinator and you know that you are, and you're also the test center supervisor, of course, there are checks and balances, so we'll reach out to you if anything needs to be updated.
Is there any late registration if a student does not register by the April 1st deadline?
I'm going to toss this one to Megan as well.
School day does allow standby test takers, so there will be a small overage of materials and paper registrations sent to each site. So if any student was missed during the registration window, they can fill out a paper registration form and register on the day of the exam.
And just to kind of, as Megan did say there is a small overage that's sent, so you want to make sure that you do everything possible to get students registered by April 1st. But we do send a small overage so that, because we do know sometimes things happen, but really do try very hard to get students registered by April 1st, because that's the way we can really assure if they're registered that there definitely will be test materials for them.
Okay. The next question is, can you email a copy of this presentation to us or to the district contact?
Yes, we will. We will send the presentation, both the recording and the Q&A document, out to the district contacts, and they'll distribute it to folks.
Okay. Would every student taking the SAT accommodations, even those with 50% extended time, use a different test form and then not be included in the enhanced report?
Yes, so the SSD forms are not considered to be the standard form, and so they won't be included in the enhanced aggregate report. They will be included in the student level data file, so the file where you get to see student level performance on specific on test items and whatnot. You will see them there, but you won't see them on the enhanced aggregate report.
Okay. And the last question is there a designated makeup day?
So for the majority of there is a designated makeup day. This designated makeup day will vary depending on the contract that you have and what was designated within that contract with your district or your state. So I think for the designated makeup day, make sure to contact your College Board district representative so that you can make sure you know that the appropriate makeup day.
Okay. So these are the phone numbers.
Okay, and so we just got through all the questions that we had, and so like I said, we're going to both distribute a recording of this presentation as well as the Q&A document that came out of this to district reps. But also, as we mentioned, we want to make sure you have the contact information that you may need. So if you see there, so customer service and support for educators. You'll see that there's a number for the online course educator support as well as an email. So if you're having an online course issue, you'll also see there's contact information for student and parent customer service and support. There's online course user support, there's registration and questions, those are two different numbers. There's also in basically kind of every form that's gone out, there's a phone number, there's customer support contact information in there as well, so that you should be able to reach out and have access to the people you need. Megan, is there anything you want to say about who folks should contact if maybe they're not sure who to contact?
Oh, is that a trick question?
Well, no, I mean, if they're like, I'm not sure who I should call about this or email about that. What would be the best, if they're not sure, what would be the best email or phone number for them to use?
So if your question is pertaining to something regarding the actual administration of the test once the test day draws closer, you would want to direct your questions to ETS. Also, there are email communications that will go out in between now from the time of the test. And usually those emails do a really good job of stating if you have any questions, who to reach out to, whether it's by email or by phone, because sometimes those emails will come from ETS, sometimes they will come from internal College Board, so it'll give you the appropriate line. I would definitely look in whatever email you're looking at if you have a question to get a contact number there. Otherwise, if it pertains to something on test day, you would want to reach out to ETS. If it pertains to any kind of question regarding actual registration, then you would want to reach out using the educator helpline for College Board.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we've come to the end of our time, and we're actually 3 minutes left here. We're right within our time frame that we planned. I want to thank everybody who joined us today. We're really happy that you're part of the SAT School Day Administration. We're excited to be able to work with you and with your students, and we want to make sure your students have a great experience. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. As I mentioned again, just want to make sure everybody knows this. We'll be sending out a recording of this, as well as the question and answer document to your district contacts, so that you can share it with other people. Or if you feel that you want to watch it again, please feel free. We hope you have a wonderful afternoon, and we look forward to working with you over the next couple months. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's webinar. You may disconnect your lines.